It's Wednesday, February 25th, 2015. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, horror news and Parasyte.
Let's do this.
So yeah, I pretty much have ignored the Oscars forever now. I've never really been super interested in them, but
I mean, I'm not, no.
I'm not
there's
opposed.
too much. If we could spend a whole show talking about how awards shows are garbage and worthless. But,
Yeah.
If you compare them all, the major ones in the United States, the Oscars are probably the worst ones.
Yeah, and basically I
It's
noticed
like I have more respect for the other ones.
usually people who, like anime people who don't really pay attention to other kinds of media, like, there's that type of person. They tend not to pay attention to this stuff because they don't expect anime to win. And this time around, at least, the anime people actually noticed that the Oscars are kind of messed up because of that guy.
They didn't notice the year before, the year before, the year before.
Well, because now they had that guy who was a real Oscar voter who said he voted for Big Hero 6 because he watched it with his kids and he wasn't too keen on the two Chinese movies that were in contention, which I assume he meant Song of the Sea and Princess Kaguya.
The way Oscars are decided,
Old
right,
white men.
is a bunch of
And they don't even watch them.
90% of the people who vote are old white dudes. They're not required to watch every movie. They just get these free screener copies, and they just vote, and they're members of the Academy, whoever the fuck they are, and they can vote or even abstain on categories if they don't give a shit.
They vote pretty randomly.
And it's just a bunch of old white American dudes, and they just decide. It doesn't, and then people are like, oh, I'm so thankful I won this award. It's like, as far as I'm concerned, if you win an Oscar nowadays or ever, that might even mean your movie is worse because it's a movie that old white American dudes prefer for whatever reason, which means it's probably not the best movie.
But just literally those two Chinese movies.
That old white, why do people? It seems like 90% of the conversations, period, that occur are, wow, look at how stupid people are. And it's like, yeah, I've realized how stupid people are since last millennia. I don't need to keep discussing it in 90% of conversations ever. If all you have to say is, wow, here's another example of how stupid, evil, etc. people are, why even bother saying it or thinking about it? Right?
Well,
just shut up and let's talk about something else.
Was it George Carlin said this? Some other comedians may have also said this, but imagine the average person. He's pretty fucking dumb, right?
Mm-hmm.
Half of people are dumber than that.
That's right.
So I don't have any news because there's not a lot of news. I mean, yeah, we're going to be at Anime Boston, but we have no idea what our schedule is going to be, so we can't really talk about it much yet.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be at ZenkaiCon, and we know our schedule, but we were told we're not allowed to talk about it yet. But we'll be there doing a whole bunch of
I think they
panels.
just don't want us because it might change and whatever. But
yeah, guys.
it's not like there's anything super secret on the ZenkaiCon schedule.
But it's not meta moment because I'm not talking about us, not Geeknights. But I point out that with Kineticon, I made a bunch of schedule changes, and we'll just move stuff around live months and months and months before the con. Like, yeah, the schedule's going to change.
Who cares?
Why hide it from you until 2 weeks before and then pretend that schedules don't change, guys? Why does every con do it wrong? Anyway. So, yeah, we got all that stuff coming up, but no real news there. And I actually have been watching a ton of anime.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I paid for the Funimation streaming site, independent of Crunchyroll.
I pay for Crunchyroll. I'm not paying for Funimation.
The thing is, all the new anime I want to watch, other than Yoa Pedal, is on Funimation. And you know what else is on Funimation that I never actually finished watching and I really want to see the rest of? Fujiko Mine. Yeah.
I've got like 10 or to 12 shows in my Crunchyroll queue that I have not finished watching or still coming out.
You should skip all of those and just watch Yuri Kuma Arashi.
All right.
Yeah,
where
see,
I am.
So that show, Emily and I watched the first episode, and we didn't pay for the streaming, so we watched it, with commercials and low resolution.
Oh, just get the torrent.
Eh.
Here's a pro tip for people. There's a fan subber out there called Horrible Subs. And you know what Horrible Subs does? They rips videos straight from the Funimation website with everything intact, not even trying to hide it.
So much
and
for
they put it straight on BitTorrent in full quality.
So much for every argument everyone ever made about why they watch fan subs and how it's not illegal or immoral to do so.
I have downloaded many a horrible subs torrent, and I don't give a shit.
So anyway, we watched one episode of it because, for those of you who don't know, the show is also called Love Bullet. The name basically translates to Lesbian Bear Storm. And looking at it just from the outside, like looking at pictures of what it is.
I see bears.
Yeah, descriptions of what it is.
I see Ikuhara.
The fact that it's called Lesbian Bear Storm.
I mean,
it's the
Ikuhara
kind of
brings
show,
lesbians along all the ways.
Talking about judging anime by their cover, it's the kind of show that a discerning person like myself or Scott would have ignored out of hand, but for the fact that it is directed by Kunihiko Ikuhara, the same crazy dude who made Utena and Penguin Drum happen. And that was pretty much the only reason I was going to give this show a shot. We watched episode 1, and it was half really weird in that Ikuhara way, and half really weird in a, I don't want to say perverted, but kind of porny way. Sumlin and I look at each other.
So in Ikuhara way.
So take some aspects of the Utena movie, dial it up a notch.
So Ikuhara, yeah.
Yeah, up though. You haven't seen.
I mean, he was a long time ago. He's had time to ferment.
He's prepared. The way before him has been prepared.
He's been fermenting for a while.
So then we had other stuff going on, and I come back home from that ski trip, and I'm like, so you want to watch more of that Lesbian Bear show? And she's like, okay, I guess. And we watched another episode, and it's really, really, really good. And I immediately paid for Funimation, and we've been watching it like immediately after it comes out. I'm not going to spoil anything about it other than, yes, it has lesbians. Yes, some of the lesbians, but not all of them, are literally bears. Like the plot is basically the Wall of Severance, which is all capital letters, darker than black style, has separated the world of humans from the world of bears because a planet Camellia, or a star, blew up a long time ago, and dust from that star rained down on the earth and woke up all the bears. The bears started eating people because that's what they do.
Is it from stars because like Ursa Major and Minor?
Maybe.
So I've already seen through everything.
Every character, every scene, everything gets a subtitle. So they'll be
there's
like,
not really that many other animals in space that aren't like crabs or scorpions.
So they'll be like the name of a school, and the subtitle will say place. Or sometimes it'll say 2 weeks ago, and the subtitle will say flashback. So every scene has like a name. Every person has like a formal taxonomical name. There are 2 kinds of beings in the world to this point, 8 episodes in. There are bears and there are Yuris.
Okay.
Yuris are girls who may or may not be bears.
So there's no dudes who aren't.
There are, in fact, no men in the show.
There you go.
Until the most recent episode, the most recent one. One man appeared.
Is he a bear?
We had no. I do not believe he was a bear.
Is he a Orion with a belt?
So he
with
was
3
wearing,
stars on it.
He was wearing high heels and pretty sure voice acted by a woman.
So it was him.
It was basically Proto Akio.
Okay.
Hard to say, but that was the first male character in the show, other than there are 3 bears known as the Judgmens, and they preside over the Yuri court, and they approve Yuri. Shabba Dadu.
Right.
They're basically Toga, Little Toga, and Mickey crossed with Ruka Toga.
Sure. Okay, whatever.
The show is really great, and it's about bullying, it's about lesbianism, it's about
bears,
kind of.
Hey, Yogi. Made a boo-boo.
Honestly, I'll say this. If you're new to anime, like if you haven't watched a lot of anime, don't watch this show. This show is a little too advanced for you. It's also a show where if you're gonna watch it in a place where your doesn't watch anime parents may happen into the room, I would suggest not watching it in that situation.
You think they'll be scared by the bears? Rawr.
the bears are actually kind of tiny and adorable, except they do just fucking kill people.
You should do a mashup with Hajime no Ippo, the part where he punches the bear.
Oh, that'd be a good mashup.
The thing is, that's a full-size like grizzly bear.
Well, you know the karaoke song, the bear song, from when they're trying to scare the bears out of that giant stomach in Adventure Time?
Oh.
We are bears, 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 bears.
Yep.
I was going to make an AMV to Yuri Kuma to that song, but someone beat me to it.
We watched some Adventure Time?
I'm caught up on Adventure Time.
All right.
Yeah. Well, I think I am. What was the last episode you saw?
If you remind me, I'll be able to tell you.
Okay, we'll talk after. We'll talk after about Adventure Time. We've been charging our Adventure Time laser. There will be a show on Adventure Time because the show might be gearing up toward an end or something.
I don't know, maybe.
So yeah, seriously though, Lesbian Bear Storm, I really, really like it, and so does Emily. It's not done yet. There's only a few more episodes. It's only a 12-episode show. However, I want to point something out. The most recent episode, episode 8, like all these plot threads came together into a ridiculous climax, and then Ikuhara did his magic. A character is about to say something, and it's one of those, like, this is the answer to the big question. And then as that character is talking, thunder happens, drowning out her voice, and then a bunch of characters say a bunch of things to each other that you can't hear over the sound of the rain, and then a character shoots a gun at one of the other 3 characters, and you don't know which one. The episode ended on that. And then I went on Wikipedia, and I noticed that the next episode is not episode 9. The next episode of this 12-episode show is episode 8.5.
Dun, dun, dun. I mean, the last episode is episode 11.
No, it's still episode 12 as far as I can tell. I think
So it's a 13-episode show?
Now I'm worried that episode 9 is going to be followed by episode 9.3333. You cannot continue to be a bear. So
You cannot bear. You can't be a bear. We already know you can't be a bear.
I am confident.
You're Yuri.
Well, there are no men, so I don't know if I'm a Yuri. I think Yuri means human, and this is a world where there basically aren't men, which is kind of interesting because it has sort of aggressive sexuality and complex relationships.
It's called Why the Last Man. It's been done, bro.
But because there is literally no gender at all or sex at all in terms of chromosomal sex, that is not a factor because all characters are women.
But they're still having sex.
Yes, some of them are and some of them aren't. So as a
With
result,
bears.
you get, yes, some people have sex with bears.
And so it's bestiality.
Well, so remember Wolf's Rain where they're just wolves, but people see them as humans? Part of the plot is that 2 of the characters are bears who snuck into the human world disguised as humans. And they just look like people, but sometimes you see them and they're just bears.
Right.
And
What do they eat?
people. There's a huge body count in this show. A lot of girls get eaten by bears, just killed and eaten, and that's that. And then the next day,
It's
everyone's
their
like,
fault for tasting good.
"Oh my god, a delicious smell." Gow gow.
All right.
Gody.
Are you done talking about bears?
No, the show. I'm really obsessed with this show. I kind of want to do a whole episode on it. So if you don't watch it soon, Emily and I are just going to do an episode on the whole thing because it's just, it's my favorite anime since Kill La Kill.
Okay. Whatever.
I'm not even joking.
So, in news that's not that big, but interesting, there's this guy, I think I've mentioned him on the show before. He's a comic book writer named Matt Fraction, and he's a really cool dude. I just happen to be like the one person who doesn't like any comics he writes.
That happens.
But everyone else loves his comics. And his wife, Kelly Sue DeConnick, right? They did this comic called Sex Criminals a while ago.
Oh,
which,
yeah, I remember that.
like a year plus 2 years ago, maybe. I wasn't a big fan of that comic, but it has an interesting premise, which is basically there's two people, when they have sex and have an orgasm, time stops and then they can commit crimes.
I have witnessed two separate conversations, one among nerds and one among muggles, like non-nerds, where one person was attempting to describe the premise of this comic to the other person, and the other person has more incredulity than you would expect a human eyebrow to be able to express.
But anyway, they signed a deal to turn this into a TV series on some sort of TV channel. So that's going to be interesting, seeing that kind of thing adapted for TV. But more interestingly is that they've actually, like their production company, they're going to use their production company that they have created for this to turn more other comics, perhaps by other people besides them, and turn those things into TV shows. Since Walking Dead and others have proven that this is a profitable pathway. So hopefully, other comics that we like.
It's not going to happen with Saga.
Not with Saga, but there are other comics that we like, hopefully, will be turned into television shows that don't suck, and are worth watching.
Yeah.
Or perhaps comic books that you didn't have the time to read or you don't want to read. There's too many issues or something.
At this point, what I'd really like to see is if they made a TV show that was based on the My Little Pony comic. You see what I did there?
I see what you did there. But yeah, this is a really interesting thing that's happening because it's not like, whatever.
Yeah.
And if you look at some of the peoples involved here, right? It's peoples that people like.
It's real with real people.
Reals.
So, things of the day. Many people, it is not an original joke to say, hey, if everyone's just like commenting on other people, like watching other people play video games, and those people
There's a
are
South Park episode about this.
Yes, and everyone makes that joke. Eventually, are people just going to be doing Let's Plays of other people doing Let's Plays? And you know what? That happened, and it's actually really, really funny. So these guys, there's a gentleman
What are
on
the names
internet.
of these guys?
The YouTube channel is Retsupurai.
All right, cool. Whatever, bro.
Yeah, I don't know. It's got a lot of views because other people seem to appreciate this. They watch Cloud87450, who is also apparently the same gentleman as Cloud8745,
Okay.
do a boss rush of Super Mario Brothers 2 on the NES because
Oh, the Lost Levels?
no,
That doesn't have bosses.
Doki Doki Panic Super Mario 2.
Oh, okay. So Super Mario 2 USA.
Because
or
that-
was he actually playing Doki Doki Panic?
He was playing Mario 2 USA.
Okay.
Because a boss rush of the game that had some of the
I'm
simplest
like, Lost
bosses
Levels
in the
does
world.
not have bosses.
Yeah. Like, this was
I
something
guess
the
it
world
has
was waiting
Koopa.
for.
They rushed all the Koopas only.
So, Cloud87450 is doing his commentary, which he clearly recorded after the fact, as he boss rushes and explains the intricate strategy of throwing.
All you do in Mario 2 to beat bosses is don't get hit by their slow-ass, easy-to-dodge attacks.
At one point-
And at an opportune moment, grab something and throw it at them.
When Cloud87450 is fighting Triclyde the second time, one of the guys doing the meta Let's Play is like, wow, I'm really surprised that the solution here involved throwing. But the moment of joy is he gets to Wart, because there aren't that many bosses in Mario 2. So he gets to Wart.
the
and
final
then-
boss, but if you're not familiar.
And then one guy on the meta stream is just like, there's 4 minutes left.
it doesn't take 4 minutes to beat Wart.
There's 4 minutes left in this video.
Like pumpkins come out of these thing.
Not just pumpkins, also that weird onion guy.
Right, well, there's like this organ, basically, like the kind that you see in a church. But
Why does Wart have that in his room?
it's like the kind of thing the Phantom of the Opera would have, only with 3 big trumpety pipes or tuba pipes almost, like bonk, right? And
I never understood why that
things
was
just
there.
this Phantos is up top, but he doesn't move at all. He's just chilling. They should have made keys come out of there, and if you grabbed
Yeah.
a key by accident, Phantos would be like, ah ha
No,
ha.
they should. Here's how I would have made this boss fight. You've got to get vegetables out and throw them into Wart's mouth, but you've also got to open like 3 doors on the other side.
And you can't normally you beat Phantos by running the fuck away, but you're trapped in this room.
yeah.
Anyway, so Phantos doesn't do anything. These pumpkins come out, and you just have to catch them and then throw them at Ward. It's not hard.
There's 4 minutes left, dude.
What is he doing for 4 minutes? Is he gonna watch the credits?
So I recommend you watch this because it proves that, yes, it is in fact possible to do a live stream of someone else's live stream and make it entertaining.
Well, it's a non-live stream of a non-live
true.
Let's Play.
I'm kind of thinking like me and Scott should do a commentary on this
Download
video.
someone else's Let's Play and then do a non-live commentary of it.
Yeah. But
Or do a commentary of this meta commentary that's going double meta.
Interesting things could happen there.
We should do a riff tracks of a riff tracks.
Oh, whoa, dog. Don't go all Inception
Let's
on
take
me
a
now.
riff tracks and be like, that joke was lame.
Yo, dog.
You guys could do better next time. Oh, that was such a good one. Oh, yeah, guys totally got All right,
Albert
so
Vidi Permiti? Anyway.
speaking of meta and live streaming and whatnot, this is dude. He's a Counter-Strike live streaming dude. He's way better at Counter-Strike than either of us.
Yeah.
And he has a brother. And the brother is not good at Counter-Strike. Maybe not even as good as us. And on the guy who's good at Counter-Strike's birthday, the not good at Counter-Strike brother wanted to get him a present. So, he just sort of called him up, said happy birthday, agreed to a match of Counter-Strike, and they started playing some Counter-Strike. Except, little did the good Counter-Strike player know that his brother had called and hired, perhaps, or asked a legit pro Counter-Strike player to come on over to his house.
Basically, he got an aimbot made of meat.
Right. So basically, while his brother is playing, and the pro guy plays, and the pro guy just goes and finds his brother and kills him, and the brother's getting all upset that somehow his other brother who sucks suddenly became way, way, way better than him, like 12 kills better than him. But then, as soon as the brother dies, the pro guy has to play like shit on purpose so that the good brother doesn't suspect anything and realize that the shitty brother is actually a pro.
That's probably the best moment where the guy's like playing like a silver.
Yeah.
Like, you really got that guy in the kneecap 4 times.
So the birthday present to the brother who loves Counter-Strike is you got to play Counter-Strike against this pro guy, right? So it makes a really kind of funny, awesome video. You should check this out.
Yeah.
And also do similar things to this if you can.
So in the meta moment, the book club book is Watership Down.
I
Scott,
read another chapter.
Make the referral link for me.
Okay.
Okay.
You should try actually sending me that message digitally so it,
I just sent it to you in a much more direct fashion.
that's not a play that I'll ever remember it.
So you guys,
Unless I do it right now.
So you read another chapter, so now the rabbits are hanging out with the cult rabbits.
Nah,
Weird rabbits.
Doesn't say that they're a cult.
There's something up with them though. They're weird, aren't they?
They're weird.
Weird rabbits.
Whatever.
Did you get to the part where they have like art and stuff in their weird war?
Yeah, they got art.
Yeah. I like how the normal rabbits don't
Huh,
quite...
which Watership Down one do we want?
Oh, you're doing it right now?
I guess the one that says Amazon Prime on
Yeah,
it.
whichever one people are likely to actually buy.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you buy the book club book through the Geeknights website, Scott will get a tiny amount of money.
Woo.
That'll fund more Geeknights happening, I guess.
Geeknights doesn't cost money. Well, it does, but
It does,
it's
but
not like it's going to matter.
it costs less money than other stupid hobbies we have. I mean, so in other news, at PAX East, which is like next weekend, it's coming up real quick. Friday, March 6th at 4:30 p.m. in the Bumblebee Theater, we are presenting What is Losing? It's going to be awesome. And the rest of PAX, we're just going to be hanging out, and it's going to be awesome. You should be there. So aside from lesbian bears and crazy fucking Mitosuji, who I hope wins that race.
I do not hope Mitosuji wins the race.
Mitosuji's my man.
Main character guy is going to win the race. It's a sports anime.
Thing is, you know what? It kind of dovetails in because we've both been watching horror anime lately as well. Because, we like Yamishibai. There's another
It's okay.
Yamishibai. I don't think season 2 is quite as good as season 1, but it's still good. Still good. And Scott turned me on to not double hard, but horror news.
So,
and
yeah.
I've been watching Parasyte with a Y.
So I was on the Crunchyroll that I pay for looking for something else to watch, and I saw this horror news, and it was short. So I'm like, all right, let's see what this is about. And the premise of this show is amazing. One of the greatest.
It's so up our alley.
One of the greatest premises, conceits for a story I've ever seen. There's a kid in school, of course. It's anime. And at night, one night, well, first of all, he's in school and he's mad skeptical and sciencey like us. But there's like some girls in school who are all like, ghosts, spirits, ooh. And he's like, you guys are full of shit, whatever. So he goes to bed one night, but he can't sleep. He's got some insomnias.
Shimbun,
And he hears someone coming down the
Shimbun.
street. And he's like, who the hell's going down the street like late at night? What the fuck? And he hears them saying, Shimbun, Shimbun. And he's like,
A word I learned from
why is
reading
there a
Eagle.
newspaper being delivered at midnight That doesn't make any fucking sense. Who is saying that while they're running down the street at midnight? So he goes to look, and in the window comes a newspaper. It's like, whoa, what the fuck is a newspaper coming in the window at midnight? He looks at the newspaper and says, horror news. And it tells him horrible things that are happening in the world, including horrible things that will happen tomorrow.
Like tomorrow, your teacher's going to die in a car accident.
And tomorrow, guess what? He tries to show the teacher the newspaper. It turned into a regular newspaper, even though it's one he doesn't subscribe to.
Well, and his action kind of causes the car accident.
And the teacher gets in a car accident, and he's like, oh my God, and they die immediately.
I like how
and he
rapidly...
sees a ghost coming out of the teacher's body.
I like how rapidly the show escalates, where he's like, well, that's crazy. And then that girl is like, oh, it's the horror news. Every time you read it, it takes like what? Some amount of time.
100 days off your life.
100 days off your life.
So then it's like, it gets good, right? He's like trying to avoid reading it. He tries to shutter the window, but the newspaper busts right the fuck in.
Yep.
And he has a teacher sleep over at one point. The teacher is like, nothing happened. What is wrong with you? He's like, don't you see this newspaper right here? And the teacher's like, whoa, there is a newspaper right there. But it's not the horror news. It's the regular news. But where the fuck did it come from?
Yeah.
And then the teacher's like, all right, I'll tear up this newspaper. And as soon as the teacher does that, the spirit like that brought the newspaper starts to fuck with the teacher big time. And it's like, whoa.
That spirit is great because at one point the spirit's like, oh, you don't want to read the horror news, do you? Well, fuck you. I'm a ghost demon, whatever.
Yeah,
it's on.
The spirit that delivers the news and makes him read it is just pretty much evil. But yeah, basically what happens after the introductory stuff and you get this premise and all this awesome parts where like he's figuring out the deal with the horror news, you get basically these multi-part stories that are sort of just triggered by the horror news and center around the main character, but aren't about the horror news. Like the first one is about going on a field trip and there's a vampire. And it's mostly about him trying to find the vampire, and the horror news just sort of gives him some tips, right?
Yep.
And the second one is about aliens, where the horror news is like, aliens are coming. So then it's all about him dealing with the alien problem, and the horror news doesn't really come into it very much other than, you know, sort of instigating the story of it. And I haven't watched anything beyond that.
But it's interesting because it's one of those shows where the main character is not stupid and doesn't do things too differently from like what I would do, because what else can you do?
Yeah, he's a skeptical person, but I mean, he's seen the horror news, so of course he believes now, which you would if you saw it the way
it's like in Bokurano, where the kids are like, this giant robot, we're pilot, whatever. They're like, let's go to the military, and they go straight to the military. And like,
eventually they go.
Yeah, well, they as soon as they can.
I think one of the girls' parents is in the military or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So horror news is this really interesting concept at the core, and the parts where they're in like talking about the deal with the horror news, because they do talk about it a little bit in the other stories, like in the vampire story. He's like, I'm on a field trip. If the horror news doesn't get delivered, that means my family can just move houses. Yeah, the horror news got fucking delivered on the field trip, all right? You can't escape that shit. What the fuck's wrong with you?
But he thought about it. He's like, how can I get out of this?
But that was like the only part where that was interesting, right? Is the horror news part. You don't really care too much about the boring, normal horror stories that go along with it. Now, the other thing about this show is the art, which is like cheapo CG. That's like, it's basically like a manga that moves almost.
The kid makes a great face.
Yeah. It's like they
Very determined.
They use cheapo CG to make it, and it looks like a manga. Like there's not a lot of animation going on. There's a lot of like, you know, still frame, move the camera back and forth while sound effects play kind of stuff. It's very cheaply made, but if you compare it to other things that were as cheaply made, it's like the CG isn't actually like bad initial D bad. It's just not super expensive CG. It's like you can tolerate looking at it. It's not painful on the eyes. It's just cheap and not expensive to make. And not really fancy models, but they're not bad models. It's just like, oh, that guy's eyes look a little funny, you know, but you're not like, oh, this is initial D bad. It looks like a PlayStation 1.
Yeah. I mean, it's in that, like, it's in the realm of horror type stuff because it deals with horror subject matter, but it's not trying to scare you horror like Yamishibai.
Yeah, this does not, I mean, I'm not scared by Yamishibai either, but this doesn't even try to scare you. You'd have to be like a 3-year-old to be scared by horror news, right? It's more mystery, supernatural, X-Files, like, ooh, what's going to happen, yo?
So I've been watching Parasyte with a Y.
It's almost closer to Scooby-Doo if you think about it.
Yeah, it kind of
Except
is.
instead of it being a person in a costume, it's actually
The horror news.
It's actually a vampire.
Yo, I am a demon. Stop trying to avoid my newspaper.
Yeah.
Don't you want my newspaper? No, well, tough.
I think he asked the dude, he's like, are you a Shinigami? He's like, no, what the fuck's wrong? Those only come if you're about to die, which is going to happen a lot sooner
Yeah, he's
because
like,
you're
what,
reading
kid?
the horror news.
Listen, son, you don't know shit about the spirit world, so don't try to talk to me.
That's the reason I'm giving you the
don't
horror
be
news.
frontin'.
Yeah,
Don't front.
that's right.
So Parasyte with a Y, the Maxim, is actually based on a manga from the 90s that I'd seen around occasionally, but I'd never actually read, I just kind of ignored it. It was one of those things you'd see sometimes. But
I've definitely known that there was an anime called Parasyte with a Y, and I knew nothing else about it, and I assumed that it was like a generic shonen whatever.
well, it's vintage recently, end of last year.
Yeah,
It's really new.
But I knew of its existence, but I did not care.
So I've watched a bunch of it, and it's much like horror news. It's a show where it's horror, and there's a character, the main character, who pretty much is smart and reacts to these things the best way you can. Very similar protagonists in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
So the general plot is that this guy is laying in bed, and independent of that, creepy monsters are just eating people's faces with horrible, bloody, gory body horror, all over Japan. And then this guy is just in his bedroom.
Wait,
sleep.
they're like live people.
Like a live-
Their faces are just getting ripped off by
So a live
ghosts?
person is standing there, and her husband walks over and is being all creepy, and she's like, what's wrong? And his whole head opens up into a giant Cthulhu monster filled with teeth, just bites her head off, blood everywhere.
All right.
And then it cuts this kid, and he's just laying around in his bedroom, he's asleep, and this weird alien-looking bug thing comes from the sky and starts crawling up to go up in his nose. And he wakes up and goes, blah, knocks it out. And it lands on the floor, and he looks at it. It's this scary bug thing. So he does what anyone would do in that situation.
Puts it in a jar.
He freaks the fuck out and tries to smash it,
Okay.
and it attacks him. And it jumps.
How big is it?
So it keeps trying to get couple inches, tiny.
Okay.
It keeps trying to jump in his face and in his ear and get into his head.
Just put a plastic bag around your head. Wait.
So he puts his hand out, and it hits his hand and burrows into his hand, and he sees it slithering and writhing under his skin up his arm.
Mm-hmm.
So he grabs some headphones and ties them around his arm and is holding them there desperately. The thing's trying to get past this tourniquet he's made, and he's screaming and
Just
knocking
get a
everything
knife
off.
and
Yeah, so he's screaming and yelling and knocking everything over and freaking out. And then his parents come into the room. They're like, the fuck, son? You on drugs?
Mhm.
And then he's like, there's the thing, it's trying, and it's gone, of course.
yeah.
And he's like, that was weird. So fast forward a bit, his hand becomes like D's hand in Initial D, except it can conform, basically his hand can go woodly woodly woo like the villain in Speed Grapher, and it can change size and shape like Jake the dog, and it can turn into giant knived dragons or whatever. And his hand just goes all woodly woodly and starts talking to him.
Does he? So he can't control it. It's just
Nope,
its
it
own.
100% controls his hand.
But
can just-
it's basically because he kept the parasite contained into the hand.
and the parasite's it makes a mouth and is ugh, God damn it, I was trying to get into your brain. Well, this sucks.
So yeah, if it would have gotten into his head, it would have just controlled his whole body.
Now, they got into other people's heads. One of them got into a dog, and that was weird.
Okay.
And basically, him and this thing have this sort of Midori no Hibi, we have came to team. We just got the
That's a
parasite's
common theme in anime.
the parasite's I don't really know what I am because you interrupted my life cycle. So are we cool? Can we just can you just deal with me being here? And then he's like, but the other ones of you are killing people. I got to stop it. And the parasite's yeah, I don't really care about that. So don't make trouble for me.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm a bear and all the other bears decide to go and kill all humans, but I don't care about killing all the humans, and the other bears don't care that I don't care about killing all humans, and I just, eat fish from the river.
Well, no, you go and have sex with the humans
have
instead
honey-
and try to get promise kisses.
have some honey from the tree and do some Winnie the Pooh action.
Oh,
It's
you,
what's the problem?
in Yuri Bear Storm, when the honey comes out, that isn't even allegory at that point. That's just honey.
So sweet.
It is the sweet. It has a delicious smell. Gory, 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 gory. So, at one point, the parasite basically he's like, I should go to the police. The Parasyte's like, they would just like send you to a government thing and cut me off and probably keep you in prison forever.
How does that thing even know about human society?
Because it demands that he like give it books and stuff. So when he's asleep, it like makes big eyes and like mouths, and it types on keyboards and like surfs the internet all night while he's asleep, like just learning shit about people.
Multipass.
And it basically it kind of turns him into a badass because it'll kind of do stuff for him. Like it helps him beat a guy up because the guy's being a dick, but it also messes with him because it doesn't understand like what's going on. It's almost, you know what it's like? This show is a cross between Birdie the Mighty, Midori no Hibi, and D's Hand in Initial D. But
Initial D? Really?
Initial D. Vampire Hunter D.
That's a hand that can drive.
The gum tape deathmatch gets a whole lot more interesting. He used his tongue to push it that extra distance.
Sure, I'll tape my hand to the wheel. I don't give a shit. My hand can all go woodly woodly. So
no, I don't think you understand the degree to which his hand goes woodly woodly. It basically forms a giant like dragon and fights with another one of these things.
Doesn't the law of conservation of matter come into this?
Not at all. Not at all. This is like,
I mean, at least Attack on Titan like attempts to deal with that issue.
This thing
poorly.
Basically, this thing is like. It's like a lot of that Japanese body horror kind of stuff is. And it's just very woodly. Like, look, that's it right there.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it's like, I need to use the internet. Let me look stuff up.
Okay.
The show is crazy, and I don't know what to say about it other than that Emily found it kind of disturbing but interesting. I find it kind of hilarious. So I kind of recommend it. At least watch an episode or two, because it's just, there's not a lot else out there to like it.
Is that pictures of live action Parasyte?
There is a live action Parasyte.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it does stuff like that. Like, it doesn't want him to go somewhere, so it just makes like this giant finger arm.
Just cut that shit off, yo.
Yeah, this kid does everything that you would try to do.
Just take a cleaver and go for it.
Yeah, it doesn't work out so well.
Why not?
Watch your show.
Cleaver a little farther.
I don't know if that's from the manga or if that's Photoshopped.
Cleaver a bit farther up.
I would not cleave that. I'd be afraid it would hurt.
You know, cleaver at the shoulder if you have to.
You see what's on my screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just saying, go for the shoulder. You got it. You need your life. I'd rather have a life without the arm than to deal with. So
this show is, what's interesting is the person directing it, Kenichi Shimizu, he's one of those guys who was like a unit director for like individual episodes for like a million shows. And apparently he was an animator on Goof Troop.
All right.
But this is the only thing I can see that he actually directed, like fully directed, that was a real show.
All right.
And it's pretty well done and actually kind of interesting. And I actually kind of enjoy it quite a bit. This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geeknights is not one, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.